Hey folks, Mike from LI Flies Mike here, and today we're going to be tying a big bunker fly from one of my favorite fly tyers using hair extensions from somewhere in New York City. As always, the full list of materials will be down in the description below. We're going to get started here by tying on a lead keel for the fly. The best way I could describe this is like a keel in a sailboat. So what we're doing here is we're going to be taking the lead wire and building up essentially like a pyramid. Now, in a future video, I actually had a great conversation with Mark. I'm going to go in detail. He explained a little bit more how he does his keel. The best way I'm going to describe it, I like to build a pyramid on the bottom here, starting off with 3 pieces tied directly on the bottom, cut to about the length of the hook, leaving myself a gap by the hook eye, and then I'll tie 2 pieces underneath, and then I'll tie 1 more, right? I'm essentially just building up this pyramid of lead, you could say, and this is going to help create the keel on the bottom of the fly. This is going to help ensure that the fly rides upright, and not only that, one of the most important things about this is that it's going to ensure that this fly is castable even down all the way up to something like on a 5 weight. Now, I'm not going to give too much away. I'm going to recommend you go check out Mark Sedotti's channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. I've seen him cast a fly that's about 14 to 15 inches long with even more lead wire than this, about 150 feet. So make sure you go check out Mark's channel. He's one of the greatest fly casters out there, and it has a wealth of information for your fly casting. We're essentially building a keel on the bottom of the fly, and this is, you'll see later on at the end of the video how this helps us cast this fly. So these are actually hair extensions that we're going to be using. My good friend Tyler, if you're out there, reach out to me, buddy. I haven't seen him for a long time. He got these when he lived out in Brooklyn, and Mark Sedotti uses wig material, but I figured this would be a good time to break out this hair extensions. The best thing I can relate this to is kind of like a mix between Supreme hair and Slinky fiber. But what I've done here is I've taken this, I've cut it down, and I've tapered it to a length. We're essentially just going to be V-tying the entire time. So what I'm doing is I'll take each length of material, taper it out, starting out with the longest piece here, and V-tying this back. And then each tie after this moving forward is going to be shorter as we move up the shank. If you don't know how to V-tie, it's very simple. If you haven't seen it before, you should check out our Kinky Muddler video. It's a great explanation for that. It's very simple to V-tie. All you need to do is tie the material directly in the middle at an angle, so it's essentially like 45 degrees off the hook shank, and then you fold it backwards and tie directly on top of it. And that way the material is on both sides of the hook shank, and it helps us build up the profile of the fly. Now see here, I'm kind of essentially just focusing most of the material top and bottom. This is our first tie after the tail section. You can tie a lot more material on the sides for this bunker profile, we'll call it. Even though the colors don't match, it doesn't necessarily matter. The profile is what we're going for here. For this larger bunker profile, let's say an adult menhaden, that's about 12 to 14 inches, right? This fly, I want to make sure that the profile is larger top and bottom than it is on the sides. Now, I will focus some more material on the sides as we move along, but for now, you can focus most of the material top and bottom with your V-ties, and every once in a while, spread the material on the sides so you're covering the thread. Now essentially we're just going to V-tie, moving our way up the hook shank. And what I like to do is just slowly taper the material down. You can always make it so you can just trim the fly afterwards, but the less amount of material that we waste and the more of a natural taper we get by pulling the ends of the material before we tie it on there, it'll just give us a better profile overall in the end. An important thing with V-ties, just like hollow ties, is to ensure that you tie the material evenly top and bottom before folding it back. So if the thread isn't perfectly even top and bottom, you'll see there's a slight gap in the material, either on the bottom or top, let's say, and it'll kind of have this offset angle. Probably doesn't matter for the fish, but if you're trying to get a nice, neat, even tie, you want to make sure that thread is evenly tied top and bottom. Working our way up the hook shank here, tying our V-ties, just slowly reducing the length of the material with our taper, right? Again, when you take the material before you tie it on, even if you cut it, let's say, you can pull on the ends, on both ends. Make sure that the ends are uneven so you can help get that natural appearance to the synthetic material. It's what we do with squimpish hair a lot. You can see I'm essentially focusing most of the material top and bottom, like I said, but most of the time after I tie the material in, I like to cover the thread on the sides, especially as we move further up the hook shank, where that thread is going to be visible. Now it helps to have a dog brush here. Fine wire brush really helps. Even when you're fishing these flies, let's say you catch a bluefish, even a striped bass, sometimes synthetic material can get kind of bunched up, especially with toothy fish. So having a brush like that really helps even while you're on the water. So it's really more apparent now that we're reducing the length of the material as we get closer to the end. Looking at Mark's flies at the recent Long Island Fly Expo, I was actually right across from him, which was great because I got to chit chat with him because it's been a little while since I've seen him. Hopefully we could do some fishing this spring. Most of the material is quite long in the rear, and then as you get closer to the front, he starts tapering down the length, because we're trying to build up that bulk near the middle and near the front of the fly. I'll put up a photo of a large adult bunker here so you can see what I'm talking about. So again, it is quite deceiving, even as I tie these flies, and I've been tying these for years. I second guess sometimes how much material. Now I'm going to be honest with you, I think I could have fit another collar or two in between some of those more spaced out collars in the rear. You'll see at the end casting this, it's so easy to cast this fly just due to the keel. But I think I could have added some more material to get an even larger profile, so we're going to be tying more of these here in the future. I have some of this pink purple hair extension. I figured it'd be nice to have some contrast in the front. So I'm going to go ahead and again, just slowly reducing the length here. We're going to get much more drastic with the length near our final collar, but for now we're still keeping it quite long, probably extending about 2.5, 3 inches, possibly even longer behind the bend of the hook. Feel free to use whatever colors you like, whatever sort of synthetic materials you like. The first time I saw Mark Sedotti tie this fly, probably about 2000, 2001, some point around there, at the Eastern Fly Rodders in Riverhead, New York. And I saw him tie this. He blended slinky fiber with angel hair. This was pre-Steve Farrar fiber being a product. And I saw him tie one of his early adaptations of a Synthetic Sedotti Slammer, and he V-tied all his material. I actually still have the fly. You know, traditionally the fly is tied with something like Steve Farrar fiber or slinky fiber. That is a great commercial material to use for this fly. But it is really nice to get 14 to 20 inch long wig hair, or you could use squimpish hair for something like this. So feel free to experiment with different materials. So for the final tie here, I'm just making sure my V-ties are even. You can really see I like getting the exaggerated offset angle of these V-ties. Especially when we get towards the front, it's okay to add a little bit more bulk to the sides, right? Because we want to cover that thread wrapping as well. And here I'm going to make sure I really try and get a nice even head on here. We don't even really need that much thread, but I'm just going to wrap this down, trying to secure these ties, spreading that material on the side so we can cover up our previous thread wrapping. So we're going to go ahead and throw a whip finish on here after brushing out the fly. We'll go ahead and put some head cement on here to lock this down. You can use all sorts of options for eyes, tab eyes, tie-on eyes, even jungle cock or something like that. What I don't recommend is using UV resin and coating the head of the fly, because we don't want to mess with the profile. I like using E6000. You could use the Liquid Seal 3000, I believe it's called. Even Zapgap makes a product, but E6000 you can get at most hardware stores around the US, your local hardware stores. And I like using 3D eyes. Now I'm using holographic eyes here because I don't have any 3D eyes that are large enough. But what I like to do is take the E6000 and apply it to the rear of the fly. It's because if we portion it towards the rear section of the eye, we could take it and work some of that glue into the body of the fly, right? And then the main thing is I like to apply a little bit more, and then I'll place it further than I want it, and then I'll actually press it down and then back. And it spreads that glue across the whole back face of the eye. It also makes sure that we don't have glue squeezing out all over the place. Because if you coat the whole back side of the eye and you push it down, which you want to do because you want to get it secure onto the material, then that glue is going to spread out all over the place and make a mess. So you can see me here putting a little bit of glue on the back, applying some, putting a little bit, applying the eye forward, and then pressing down and pushing it back. After about 5 or 10 minutes with E6000, it's a good idea to go back and push the eyes back in because the glue will expand, and you want to make sure those eyes are kind of coated and pushed in towards the hook shank so you have a nice durable eye on there. You can see here the profile is fantastic. I think I probably could have added even a little bit more material in between some of the ties. I had room for a couple more ties. So we're going to be tying more of these next time, even using more lead wire. After talking to Mark, he gave me his recipe for how he applies this lead keel. But I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to take this exact fly and we're going to fish it in June or July underneath bunker pods with a heavy sinking line. And real quick, I will explain the way that I usually fish these flies, like a 10-11 weight, probably 40-50 pound fluorocarbon, because you want something that's tough, resistant, and we're fishing these for really big striped bass. So we're casting these with sinking lines, fishing them anywhere from 30 to 90 foot of water off Block Island or off here, off the south shore of Long Island under bunker pods, and you're trying to catch very large striped bass, so you need equipment that you can handle that. But just to show you how easy it is to cast these flies, I'm going to take this fly down to a local creek. This is an 8-weight TFO with an 8-weight Rio line, and we get it about 90 foot out there. I'm actually using an old beat-up leader setup from last fishing season, but it really goes to show how putting that lead keel on there allows you to cast a large fly even with a lighter rod. Now again, I'd be fishing this with a much heavier rods. We want to be able to fight the fish and land it without it being too worn out and, you know, catch and release for these larger striped bass. Make sure they're not too beat up. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Mike from LI Flies Mike. We got new videos coming out every week. In the future, we'll be filming some fishing this upcoming summer for some big striped bass with some of these larger flies. And I'll be covering more larger flies, either Mark Sedotti patterns, Bob Popovic's, other fly patterns as well. If you have any flies you'd like to see, feel free to put them down in the comments below. Well, till next time, appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Tight lines.